My beloved child, stop scrolling and remain here, because what you are about to hear was meant to find you at this exact moment. Something has shifted behind the scenes, and the person connected to your heart has finally made a choice that no one around them expected. For a long time, they stood between two worlds. On one side was the love they could no longer deny. On the other side were the voices of family, expectation, tradition, fear, and obligation. They tried to satisfy everyone. They tried to silence their heart. They tried to convince themselves that walking away from you would make life easier. But something happened that changed everything. Stay till the end, because the final words spoken during this confrontation shocked every person in the room, and the reason your soulmate chose love is far deeper than you have been allowed to see. Pause here for a moment. Do not move away from this message. Your soulmate has been carrying a battle inside their heart that they never fully explained to you. You may have sensed their distance. You may have wondered why their feelings seemed strong one day and hidden the next. You may have questioned whether they truly cared, whether they were confused, or whether you had imagined the depth of the connection. But heaven has seen what you could not see. The silence was not empty. The distance was not proof that love had disappeared. Behind every delayed message, every unfinished conversation, and every moment when they appeared uncertain, there was pressure building around them. Their family had expectations for the life they were supposed to choose. There were plans already imagined for them. There were opinions about who would be acceptable, what kind of relationship would be respected, and what path would cause the least disruption. Your soulmate had been taught to keep the peace, even if keeping the peace meant abandoning their own happiness. They learned early that approval came when they obeyed. They learned that love could be questioned, examined, and sometimes treated like a decision that belonged to everyone except the two people actually feeling it. But you awakened something in them that could not be controlled by anyone else. When they met you, or when their heart first recognized your energy, something inside them became honest. They felt seen in a way that made pretending difficult. You did not simply enter their life as another passing person. You reflected a future they had been afraid to imagine. You made them feel the difference between living according to expectation and living according to truth. That difference became impossible to ignore. Do not skip, because the moment they finally understood what you meant to them did not happen during a romantic conversation. It happened when they were alone, surrounded by people who believed they had already convinced them to let you go. There had been a gathering. It may have looked ordinary from the outside, but the atmosphere was heavy. Certain relatives had been speaking about the future. Someone mentioned responsibility. Another person spoke about reputation. Someone else suggested that feelings change and that your soulmate should make the sensible choice. Their words were presented as wisdom, but every sentence pushed your soulmate further away from their own heart. At first, your soulmate remained quiet. They listened. They nodded. They allowed everyone to believe that silence meant agreement. But inside, memories of you began rising one after another. They remembered a moment when you had shown kindness without asking for recognition. They remembered the way your presence brought calm during a difficult season. They remembered something you said that stayed with them long after the conversation ended. They remembered how you made them feel accepted rather than managed. And while the family continued speaking, your soulmate realized something shocking. Every path being offered to them required losing the one connection that had made them feel most alive. Something huge is waiting for you in this message, because this was not the first time they had been pressured. The difference was that this time, they were no longer willing to confuse obedience with peace. For weeks, perhaps longer, they had attempted to follow the direction others wanted. They told themselves they could move on. They tried to become emotionally distant. They tried to focus on work, responsibility, routine, and appearances. They may have even allowed others to believe that they had stopped thinking about you. But each effort to forget you only revealed how deeply you remained within them. There were nights when they looked at their phone and almost reached out. There were moments when your name appeared in their mind with such force that they wondered whether you were thinking of them too. They may have dreamed about you. They may have imagined the conversation they were afraid to begin. They may have rehearsed an apology, a confession, or a promise, only to become silent again when fear returned. But the heart cannot remain divided forever. Heaven allowed the pressure to reach a point where your soulmate could no longer stand in the middle. A choice had to be made. Not later. Not when everyone became comfortable. Not when every condition became perfect. The moment had arrived when they would either surrender the connection or defend it. And my child, they defended it. The first sign came when one family member said something about you that your soulmate knew was unfair. It was not necessarily cruel, but it was spoken with certainty by someone who did not understand your heart, your journey, or what you and your soulmate had shared. They reduced your connection to an assumption. They treated you like an obstacle rather than a person. For a few seconds, your soulmate said nothing. The room believed the matter was settled. Then your soulmate lifted their head. Their expression changed. Something in their eyes made everyone stop speaking. This was not the same person who had avoided confrontation before. This was not the person who always agreed to keep others comfortable. A strength they had buried beneath years of expectation began to rise. Their voice may have trembled at first, but the truth within it did not. They said, "You do not know them the way I do." Those words created silence. No one expected them to defend you so directly. Some exchanged glances. Someone attempted to interrupt, but your soulmate continued. They spoke about your character. They spoke about the way you had supported them. They spoke about the peace they felt with you. They explained that the version of you being discussed was not the person they knew. And then came the first revelation that shocked the room. Your soulmate admitted that they had tried to walk away because of family pressure. They did not blame anyone. They did not raise their voice. But they finally named the truth. They said they had been living in fear of disappointing everyone, and that fear had caused them to hurt the one person who had never asked them to become someone else. Stay till the end, because what happened next changed the entire direction of the conversation. One relative asked, "Are you saying you would choose this relationship over your family?" The question was designed to corner them. It turned love into a competition. It demanded an answer that would make your soulmate feel guilty no matter what they said. In the past, that question would have silenced them. But something had changed. Your soulmate took a breath. They looked around the room. Then they said, "I am choosing the truth over fear." The room went still. That answer was not what anyone expected. They explained that choosing you did not mean rejecting their family. It meant refusing to reject themselves. It meant refusing to build a life based on approval while carrying regret in secret. It meant understanding that love should not require permission from people who would not have to live with the consequences of losing it. You need to hear this clearly. Your soulmate was not only defending the relationship. They were defending the person they become when they are honest about loving you. This is why the connection has felt so intense. It was never only about romance. You represented freedom from a life shaped entirely by other people's expectations. You represented emotional truth. You reflected a version of them that was brave enough to choose with their own heart. Do not skip now. The deeper truth is about to be revealed. Before this confrontation, your soulmate had received a sign. It may have been a dream, a memory, a conversation, or a moment of sudden clarity. They were shown what life could become if they continued ignoring their heart. They imagined years passing. They imagined choosing the path everyone approved of. They imagined smiling in photographs while privately wondering what would have happened if they had been courageous enough to choose you. That vision disturbed them. They realized the pain of disappointing others would be temporary, but the pain of betraying their own heart could follow them for a lifetime. At that moment, they understood something they had avoided for too long. losing you would not bring peace. It would only make the conflict invisible. Your soulmate had spent so much time trying to avoid a difficult moment that they nearly created a difficult future. But heaven has a way of exposing the difference between discomfort and destruction. Speaking the truth might create discomfort. Losing a genuine connection through fear could create lasting regret. So they chose the discomfort of honesty. And the moment they did, something inside them became calm. Even while the room reacted, even while questions were asked, even while disappointment appeared on certain faces, your soulmate felt an unexpected peace. For the first time, they were no longer divided. Their heart and their words were moving in the same direction. One person accused them of being impulsive. Another suggested that they were being influenced by emotion. Someone said they would eventually regret it. But your soulmate did not retreat. They said, the regret would be pretending I do not love them. My child, those words carried the weight of everything they had been afraid to admit. You may have believed they were uncertain about you. The truth is that they were uncertain about their ability to stand against the pressure surrounding them. Their feelings were not the weakest part of the connection. Their courage was. But courage can grow, and it has been growing in silence. Every moment of distance forced them to see what your absence felt like. Every attempt to ignore the connection made it more noticeable. Every opinion against the relationship made them ask why your presence mattered so deeply. The answer became undeniable. They love the way they feel when they can be real with you. They love that you see beyond appearances. They love that you have touched the part of them that is usually hidden. They love that even during separation, something inside them continued returning to you. But there is more. The family pressure was not only about you. It was connected to an old pattern that existed long before you arrived. Your soulmate had been expected to carry emotional responsibility for other people. They had been taught to protect everyone from discomfort. They believed saying no made them ungrateful. They believed choosing differently made them disloyal. They believed love had to be earned through sacrifice. Your connection challenged that belief. You did not enter their life to take them away from the people they loved. You entered their life as a mirror, showing them that love without freedom becomes obligation, and obligation without truth becomes resentment. At first, they resisted this lesson. They feared that choosing personal happiness would make them selfish. But now they understand that a person cannot create a peaceful future while abandoning their own emotional truth. Something extraordinary happened after they said this aloud. A family member who had remained silent began to cry. Not because your soulmate had chosen you, but because the words touched a hidden wound in that person's own life. They had once faced a similar choice. Years earlier, they had allowed pressure to decide for them. They had lived with a quiet regret that no one else in the room knew about. This person looked at your soulmate and said, "Do not make the mistake I made." The entire atmosphere changed. The people who had been certain moments before no longer knew what to say. A hidden family story began to surface. This was the ending no one expected, but it was only the beginning of the revelation. The person explained that they had once loved someone deeply but chose approval instead. They followed the plan others created. They convinced themselves it was maturity. They told themselves feelings would fade. But even after years passed, a part of them continued wondering what life could have been. They had never spoken about it. Until now. Your soulmate's courage opened a door that had been locked for years. The room that had gathered to pressure them suddenly became a place where old truths were exposed. One confession led to another. Someone admitted that the family's expectations had sometimes been too heavy. Another acknowledged that fear had been disguised as protection. The certainty began to crack. Your soulmate had expected rejection. Instead, their honesty forced everyone to look at themselves. Do not move away from this message, because the greatest shock had not yet happened. After the emotional confession, the person who had opposed your soulmate most strongly became quiet. This was someone whose approval mattered deeply to them. Someone whose disappointment they feared more than anything. This person had been the main reason your soulmate kept hesitating. Your soulmate looked at them, waiting. The room waited too. For several long seconds, no one spoke. Then this person asked a question. They said, "Are you certain this is love, and not simply fear of losing someone?" Your soulmate did not answer immediately. They closed their eyes for a moment. They thought about the nights of silence. They thought about the pressure. They thought about how much easier it would have been to deny everything. They thought about the times they had tried to imagine life without you. Then they opened their eyes and gave an answer so personal that every argument in the room lost its power. They said, "I know it is love because even when no one was watching, I kept choosing them in my heart." My child, that sentence revealed everything. Their public choice had only just happened, but their private choice had been happening for a long time. They chose you when they remembered your words. They chose you when they defended you in conversations you never heard. They chose you when they refused to let others rewrite what the connection meant. They chose you when they compared every future possibility to the peace they felt with you. They chose you during the silence, even when fear prevented them from showing it. But now the private choice has become a spoken truth. And spoken truth changes the path ahead. You may soon notice a difference in their behavior. They may become more direct. They may say something they have avoided. They may attempt to repair what fear damaged. They may no longer hide behind vague explanations. The courage that appeared in that room will begin appearing in their communication with you. However, heaven wants you to understand something important. Choosing love does not erase every challenge instantly. Your soulmate has taken a powerful step, but they must now prove that choice through action. Words can open the door, but consistency must carry them through it. This message is not asking you to chase them. It is not asking you to ignore your boundaries. It is not asking you to accept confusion simply because feelings exist. It is revealing that the internal battle has reached a turning point. Your soulmate can no longer pretend that family pressure is stronger than their love. They have seen what happens when they surrender their power. They have felt the cost of silence. They have faced the possibility of losing you, and that possibility awakened something fierce and honest within them. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you, because there was one final moment in the room that no one saw coming. After your soulmate declared their choice, the person whose approval they feared stood up. Everyone expected anger. Some expected them to leave. Your soulmate prepared themselves for rejection. But instead, this person walked toward them. They placed something in your soulmate's hand. It was an object connected to the family's history. Perhaps a letter, a piece of jewelry, a photograph, or something that had been saved for an important occasion. Your soulmate looked down, confused. Then the person said, "I wanted you to choose the life I understood. But perhaps you are meant to choose the life that is true for you." Those words broke something open. Your soulmate became emotional. Not because the conflict had disappeared, but because the person they most feared disappointing had finally seen their courage. The family did not all agree. Some remained uncertain. Some needed time. But the power of the pressure had been broken. The choice no longer belonged to the room. It belonged to your soulmate. And they had chosen love. They had chosen you. But my child, the most shocking part is what happened after everyone left. Your soulmate remained alone in that room, holding the object they had been given. The silence felt different now. It was no longer the silence of fear. It was the silence that comes after a truth has changed everything. They sat down. They looked at their phone. They opened your name. For a long moment, they stared at the empty message box. There were too many things to say. They wanted to tell you that they were sorry. They wanted to explain why they had pulled away. They wanted to tell you that they had finally defended the connection. They wanted to ask whether it was too late. But before they could type, they noticed something that stopped them completely. There was an old message from you. A message they had read before, but never truly understood. They opened it again. This time, the words carried a different meaning. You had written something that sounded simple when they first received it. Perhaps you told them that love should be chosen freely. Perhaps you said you would never force them to stand beside you. Perhaps you reminded them that your heart was sincere, but you would not compete for a place in someone's life. Now, after everything that had happened, those words became a mirror. Your soulmate realized you had never asked them to fight their family. You had only needed them to stop fighting their own heart. Tears filled their eyes. They began typing. The first sentence was written, deleted, and written again. They wanted the message to be perfect, because they knew it could change the future. Finally, they wrote, "I made the choice I should have made a long time ago." Their finger hovered over the send button. But before they pressed it, another message appeared on their screen. It came from the family member who had revealed the hidden story. The message contained a name. A name your soulmate recognized. A name connected to you. And beneath it were the words, "There is something about this person and your connection that everyone needs to know before you take the next step." Your soulmate froze. They read the message twice. Then a third.